Hello. I'm back in my gold chair. I am no longer laying in my bed and being sick. I am possibly speaking to some new people because this time, unlike last time, I am going to put in tags so that possibly more people may see this. I want to talk about the OGL. Like everybody wants to talk about the OGL because you know what? People like myself, like you, want to know more about wizards and the negativity and the 1.2, the 1.0A. They want to know how bad this is going. What's happening with the game that we love, and how can we stop them from stopping us playing the game we love? Because ultimately, we all feel that we're being impeded by wizards, and particularly Hasbro and the executive, who are making decisions based on the stock and based on the stockholders who ultimately are in charge. Now, the board of directors wants to make money, and this should make sense to all of us, okay? We should not be naive to think that we're not living in a world where uh, board of directors of open companies and stocks are going to be able to say to their executives who run branches like Wizards, you need to make more money because we've invested in order for you to make us more money so that we can buy out when it reaches the top. Now, I'm going to do a little experiment. I haven't done this today, actually. I did this last week. And on Friday last week, I saw that the valuation, Thursday last week, I saw that the valuation of Hasbro stocks was, um, it started at, um, it started at around 64 cents, 64.5, and it ended the day at, I think, a loss of 2 or 3 cents. Um, that's Hasbro stock. All right, took me a little while. All right, so they're at 64.76 cents. So a month, so they've been hovering now around the 64.5 cent. Now, the lowest that I can see from the past 5 days is that on the middle of the 19th, and I'm now recording on the 23rd, they were down to around 61 cents, but they've bounced back up. And now they're at 64.72. They're trading slightly down for the day, but they're still hovering around 64 cents. Now, they're year to date, and I'm not going to get into this, but because I don't think that you really care, but they've rallied today, and the fact remains is that their highest valuation was back in September, and it was around 80 some odd cents. And the lowest that they've been was in what looks like very early January, if not uh, late December, at around 50 some odd cents. They've gained 10 cents in value. Why am I telling you this? You can look this up. It's because we first have to understand that this machine, as I said when I was laying in bed, that this machine is made to replicate itself. And we as consumers have been allowing it to go on and go on and go on. I'm older, and so I look back at the beginning of D&D, and I know that that drives some of you crazy because you weren't there in the beginning of D&D, of AD&D and chainmail and all that stuff. When really it was It was the beginning. It wasn't even the golden age. It was the beginning. Maybe the golden age is really the OGL. Maybe that's the difference, is that us old timers, as it were, are looking at a golden age that came out, when TSR was at its prime. But in actuality, I think that maybe, we're kind of the Bronze Age. We were developing things, and things were great, and you could have you could have books that were sold in the 70s with with little titillating drawings. But now everything has been whitewashed in a way that we would only describe as, say, Disney or Pixar-esque. Now, for some of you, that's great because you're buying for your grandchildren or you're buying for your children. We're losing our market cachet because we're getting older. And so, as the insurance knows, we're at the later ends of our ages. And so, the people who are very much into OSR, except for the few who've discovered OSR, like Ben, who is a younger person who's discovered OSR and has really embraced it on his channel and with his publications with Nave and the other one. I want to say Mouse Ritter, but it's not. But anyway, Ben Milton, or you should. Most of us are nostalgic, looking to gather up something. So Hasbro already knows that we're not their market. We are not the target. We've become savvy. And so I'm not really speaking to people my age who were in their late 50s, early 60s, or older, who were part of the pioneering group. I'm looking at people who are buying for their children. I'm looking at the bigger picture today. So before I go on, I just want you to know that if you're watching me for the first time and you've watched this far in, only click like if you want other people to see this and if you genuinely like this. And I encourage you to watch to the end before you click or even skim to the end, because this is also part of the problem. This too is part of the problem because my exposure is based on your clicks. Comment. Only comment if you have something pressing to say or if you want the algorithm to push me out so that other people will see it. Because again, that's part of the problem. Is that we've, on YouTube, and I'll speak about Twitch in a second, we've accepted a model that makes creators say click and subscribe and do all the dingies and all that stuff. If you're new and you like this type of presentation, press subscribe. Otherwise, don't, because this isn't as much for me as it is for the community. Do I have something to say to the community? If you don't think so, then why should you be promoting me? Why should you be subscribing? That's false, and you know it. Because we've been glamored to accept this crap. And this is why I'm talking about the bigger problem. The OGL and the issues that WotC is facing at the moment are because we have allowed them for generations to do this crap. And we've allowed all companies to do this crap, particularly the online communities. Twitch, and it's not the fault of the creator. The creator has to say on Twitch, hey, subscribe. Buy emojis. Buy conversations. Subscribe someone else. Go to Amazon and use your Amazon purchase and use your Amazon free membership on us. because we're all being glamored to say, hey, you have to change the way you provide content in order for you, ultimately, I guess for some, to get paid, because some people want to make this a job, and that's okay. But we can't go in it naively thinking that we're not part of the problem by doing all those things and buying all those micro bits and all the rest of the stuff. And it's the same on here with paid, chats and doing the live stuff where you are literally encouraging your fan base to spend money and more money and more money because it gets us more money. But we're hawking. And I don't think that that's right. I never expect to get paid for this. I'm speaking purely just as me, who has a job, and I'm fortunate to have a job, to be able to say to you, I love this hobby, but I see the bigger picture. WotC has only got this far because we've allowed them to get this far with their legalese and with the statement, we're under monetizing. Now, I've brought a couple of things here, but first I want to talk about WoW. I've told you about that past part, about me being, part of the early generation of Bronze Age players. When 3.0, 3.5 kind of changed the game, I was starting work as in the field that I preferred to be in in my 30s and in my mid 30s, and at that time, I was excited about the OGL. And I believe that at the same time, Dan over at Dungeon Craft was writing at the same time modules for Dragon or Dungeon Magazine or articles. This was a time where the OGL opened up everything, and we said, yes, we can create, we can do more. And it opened our eyes because, let's face it, for those of us who do remember, TSR was getting kind of very shitty. And there were a lot of publications that they put out and a lot of modules that they put out that started to be nothing but a kind of inside joke for them because they were throwing out content like crazy. Sound familiar? With nothing, with no substance. In the 90s, I got into Magic. Like many, I had Lotuses and I had 26 lands, something double lands and all this stuff. And I sold my thousands of dollars worth of collections for like $700 because I needed to pay rent. A story that you've heard from many old people, back in my day. All right, so I stopped playing and I sold my cards, not only to pay rent, but because I realized that this was a cash sink. And this was going to be an entire hobby of its own. And I would have to choose between hobbies because I couldn't sustain my love of board games, my love of D&D, which really was at the time. I loved D&D. And kind of anything else, going out on a date with my wife, doing things with my kids, buying a PlayStation. This couldn't happen. So that market of saying, hey, you've got to buy and buy and buy, and these cards are ranked, has been with us for a long time. Now, I'll give you a really good example in WoW. WoW forced many to buy gold. Now, you might say, I played vanilla and classic WoW, and I never bought a touch of gold, and I think you're a scumbag for buying gold. And maybe I am a scumbag for buying gold, but those people who were hawking the gold knew a good thing. They saw an immersive, addictive game where people wanted to get the full content, and the only way you could get a full content was by making friends with 40 other people at least to go into the higher level games. And the only way you could get there, truly, if you wanted to speed through it, was by buying better gear off of the auction house. Grinding was fine if you liked and if you had 8 hours to grind. And there were many days when I spent grinding and grinding and grinding for pots so that I could raid. Blizzard knew that the addiction of the game required those micropayments that came even outside of their game. It was kind of a good evil. No, they weren't happy, but they also realized that it kept the people in. And as the game developed into the next iteration and the next iteration, we saw it becoming further and further away from Classic, and people who were savvy enough realized, hey, Blizzard is pulling the wool over our eyes and now making us pay for mounts and pay for this and pay for that and all these micropayments. We have allowed WotC to do what they're doing. Don't be fooled. The discourse on YouTube and Twitch has now moved to being legalese. We're watching the legal eagles talking about stuff. And I do this too. And they're getting lots of views, and so they should. They've put a lot of work into this. But Wizards knows that the discourse about legalism can only go so far before we get bored of it. This is a morality issue based on micropayments and on how much do we have to spend on our entertainment. That's ultimately what it comes down to. So, WoW was WoW. But Wizards wasn't stupid either. Now, I have a tackle box. And in my tackle box, I will take out the top row. And in my tackle box, I have miniatures. I hope that it focuses. These are miniatures. Now, I've sold all of the rares because I do that type of thing. I think this one is this one is a rare. So this one is a half giant. I hope that it focuses on the half giant. This is one of my favorite miniatures. But then this one is a half elf assassin. And this one, I have so many half elf assassins. Tons of them. And then I have a Dale Lands militia. Okay? And I just literally pulled them out. This was not planned. So, 3 tiers. You got a shit ton of crap like this. And I have so many yeah, it's fine. But in order to get this, and if I wanted a specific one, especially dragons, and I think my boys have all of my dragons upstairs. I probably have one in the cupboard over there, but in order to get the good stuff, you had to continue to buy those boxes, which were randomized. Why are we complaining about WotC now, that they want to make all this money? Back in the OGL days, do we seriously forget that they were ripping us off by these boxes? They're ripping us off. They've been ripping us off. Why are we surprised? Why are we surprised? Because they knew that this was a cash cow for them. The business hasn't changed. The business hasn't changed. Let's move about 10 years later. So, yes, we have Blizzard, and we have the debacle that was 4E. And let's face it, what was the anger about 4E? Was it because it was a complete shit game? No, mobs were great. 1 hit point, killed them all. That was great. A lot of people have home ruled that. It was because it was too similar to a video game. Now, I was part of a beta test back in 3.5 that was looking at going to the table and making a virtual tabletop. This has not been an idea that's just come out of the blue or is a response to Roll20 or any other VTT or the technology as it's grown. This is something that they've seen way back when probably the initial computer games. TSR produced computer games. But there weren't micropayments at the time. There wasn't this forcing you and crowd influence. Twitch has a crowd influence. When you're on there, if you want to belong, you need those emojis to feel like you belong. And there's a system, if you're unaware of it, where the owners or the people who are the mods will send you a gift. And then you're expected to use that gift because you feel guilty that you've been gifted, and then you feel like you have to join. Now, some of you don't, and some of you do. And in order to participate, we're going bigger and bigger. And it's not the fault of the creators. The creators realize that this is a moneymaker and this is a crowd pleaser and this is how you get more audience because there's what we used to call in psychology the Beatlemania effect. One person screams, another person screams, another person screams, everybody starts screaming, everybody goes frenzied because others are frenzied and we're expected to be frenzied. We're expected to be stupid enough to keep on buying this stupid shit that Twitch puts out, that Google puts out through YouTube, all these micro things. In the beginning of COVID, I was addicted to a particular channel because I liked the content. But I very quickly realized this is a sham, and it's not their fault. They've been, in the same way Beatlemaniaized, by being convinced that this is the route that they must take in order to be of value. That's a business model. And the business model works because they've got to pay for all of these high-tech things. Whether it's the company Amazon, they have to pay for their servers, and so do VTTs, and so does Midjourney, and so do all the rest, and so does Discord. Everybody needs to pay for their servers as they become more popular, so of course they're going to need more money. Amazon, Netflix, they charge money so that they can produce. And we feel like we're being scammed. I pay for YouTube. And the reason why I pay for YouTube is because I don't want the advertising. And I feel I've given enough to YouTube, frankly. But I know that the cost is just going to keep on incrementally going up as they believe that inflation is being kept up by our meager salaries. But most of us do not make the same amount as inflation. We don't go up. You need 2 salaries in your home. Unless you don't have children or you don't have any other expectations like having a car and buying gas and paying for your utilities. Hasbro and Wizards are keeping a system that's been going for at least 20 years. And we're saying, hey, stop it. We don't expect you to do that. But they've been doing it. We're saying, oh, well, the creators can't create. The creators can create, they just can't create D&D. And why are we sad about this? Is D&D the highest pinnacle of a role-playing game, or is it nostalgia? I'll give you a few in a minute or two, well, probably 5, of examples of what we need to do to change. Because everybody's been talking about, okay, don't go to D&D Beyond, stop, take away your subscription. those who have watched my channel know I did this 18 months ago, and there's probably a video somewhere around then that tells you why I stopped and why I moved over to different groups and why I'm encouraged about what's going on in Malaysia and why I'm encouraged by 1,000 Islands, brought to my attention by Ben Milton on his channel, Questing Beast. And I'm excited to see that Matt Colville, who I'm watching again because I didn't like the emphasis on 5e. I'm happy he's making something new. I think that this is going to be great. Paizo, Green Rodent, the Orc license. This is good stuff. It's competition. It's going to keep us alive and thinking. And don't be led into the same trap, because they're going to be putting constant stuff out for us to buy. A lot of us are completionists, and so we feel that we have to. What I'm saying to you today is don't be fooled by the OGL and by the discourse that's happening all over, where I'm sure that you can clearly see that there are a lot of people who are just making money off of doom scrolling, right? There's doom scrolling all over this shit. And if you're watching me, you're probably doom scrolling. But I want you to think in the bigger picture. And I don't want you to think of me as a YouTuber. I want you to think of me as somebody who's having a conversation with you and saying to you, wake up from your stupor of spending money needlessly. I backed Conan, the board game, way back when Kickstarter was really coming into its own, especially the board game aspect, and Monolith kind of came out of this, and I have here a Balpator, which I felt that I absolutely needed, and I bought a special Brom guest box. And it has 2 hero sheets, 6 asset cards, and 2 plastic miniatures. And here's the Black Dragons. And this has 1 tile and 5 figurines en plastique. I don't even know if I still have them in here. Oh, I do. So here's the big box. I don't know, it must have cost me about $20 or something like that. And here are the crappy figures. Monolith knew during their Kickstarter how to manipulate the crowd. And they got a lot of people like myself, and maybe you're not like me. Maybe you don't like to complete your Kickstarters. But I bought this stuff, and I've never even opened these boxes. To be honest, I think that's the first time I've ever opened that. Played the game, I enjoyed it a little bit, and then I got bored, and then I bought a whole shit ton of other games. Like one does. And like we do in role-playing. Because our human nature has addictive personalities, whether you are a truly, clinically addictive personality, or whether we're just a collector, or whatever we use as a name to justify ourselves. We want to have the latest and greatest, the new and exciting. We want to have the next D&D. We want to have that feeling, that experience. This Christmas, I was sick. We didn't have a lot of money to spend. And all of our children are adults. And it was an adult Christmas. And I remember reflecting that night on how it used to feel when I was younger and even as an only child, opening up presents under the tree and that feeling. Nostalgia will hit us no matter what. And don't say, oh, well, it's not nostalgia. We all are susceptible to nostalgia in certain ways. We like that feeling of newness. And even if you had a crappy upbringing where presents were not given in the way that you expected them or in the way that other people gave. You found something in the hobby that gives you a thrill and gives you a sense of belonging. And that's important. And we should foster that as all of us custodians of the game, all of us being stewards of the game, as Wizards of the Coast say. You win and we win. What a fucking bunch of crap that is. That was like the worst statement in the world, because they're saying we win because we're getting your input. No, they don't care about our input because they want us to buy all of the jingles. They want us to get addicted to D&D Beyond. I spent a year and a bit paying every month for D&D Beyond because I wanted to have more than 3 characters. I used it with my school group, as you'll see if you'll go way back in my friggin' videos. And this year I put a stop to that, and I'm using Vaesen. I'm not naive enough to think that Free League doesn't want to monetize as well. Don't think that any other company is going to change the way that they do business and that they're only a few steps behind where Wizards is. You have to pick and choose who you're going to support, and you have to pick and choose how you're going to impact the industry. So, we see that these micropayments are ridiculous. Sony, Xbox. For those of you who are gamers or online gamers, you know that in order for you to get the full game, you have to invest a hell of a lot more than your $89. I think that's what it is in Canada now, or $69 or whatever it is. You are buying an incomplete game, just like Kickstarter makes you feel that if you don't buy into the Kickstarter right away, you are going to be without. There are the similarities between that model and the model that's being proposed or stated by D&D Beyond and by Wizards and by their acquisition of it and by everything that they're doing at the moment and by the legalese that's there, is because they want to be a monopoly and they want to be the best. So here's my advice to how to stop them. Obviously, everybody said, and if you're watching this, you probably already have dropped your D&D Beyond subscription. The second thing you can do is say, okay, I'm not going to buy any more Hasbro products. When you go and buy gifts for your grandkids, stop buying from Hasbro. Do not buy any more Hasbro products. And I'm sure that other people have said this, but certainly, and if you're a Magic the Gathering player and you're pissed off, be pissed off. The problem is that we're ingrained in our groups and we feel an obligation to our groups that if we stop doing something, we're going to lose our connection with the group, because our reason for being in the group is because we are having the best cards or we are purchasing. It's that Beatlemania effect where we have to feel like we belong. We've got to stop that. So stop buying your grandchildren, your children, yourself, games that are intentionally trying to scam you and get every last cent out of you. And now, if you don't want to be hypocritical, and I think this is where I'm confused about this whole argument, is when I said in my near deathbed, when I was feeling so horrible in the last video, and I said, why are you so surprised at WotC? I lost 3 viewers. I lost 3 subscribers. I was like, well, at least it worked. Because why are we so surprised? We still buy into Amazon. If you can get it cheaper, you probably go to Amazon. If you want to get it faster, you probably go to Amazon. If you live in a rural community like myself, you probably go to Amazon. Stop doing those things and start using the internet to find a friendly local game store, because you know who's taking the biggest hit out of this? It's the friendly local game stores, because people are going to stop buying Magic cards. Their entire business model is based on that. Most friendly local game stores and D&D. They don't bring in tons and tons of books of Free League stuff or Modifius stuff or Green Ronin stuff or Paizo stuff. Well, Paizo's better, of course, because they have established a strong name. Support your friendly local game store by asking them to get in other games. Is it going to cost you more? Damn straight it's going to cost you more, but at least you should have a good conscience of knowing that the people who are supporting your hobby and who are going to be able to legitimately answer your questions are those people at your friendly local game store. So don't kill them by stopping buying your books. The other thing is, stop calling it D&D. We've gotten into this generic habit of just everything is D&D. When I'm over at the school and we're playing Vaesen, the announcement that goes on for the school is D&D club is blah, 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 meeting at blah, blah, blah time. That's got to stop. We have to educate the public and educate people who we are with that this is not D&D night, that this is role-playing night, that this is RPG. If you say TTRPG because you want to make a distinction, just try to convince someone to say TTRPG or tabletop night. That might be better. But somehow or other, we've got to change the language, because D&D is ubiquitous and it sucks. Because as soon as you say that, all of the kids or all of your friends are going to be telling their parents or their kids or themselves that, oh, I have to get D&D because that is the genre, that's the game. So stop saying that. And as I said, don't be hypocritical. Don't go to Amazon because you know that they treat their people like shit. So why do we support them? We're supporting companies that are doing the same type of manipulation as Wizards of the Coast is doing, and we're complaining about this, and we're being so ridiculous. Walmart is basically eliminating most of their jobs so that they can bring in all of these electronic things. This is the future. I like AI images. And I actually got in trouble. Well, I removed the images of AI art off of a Discord server because I felt that the people that I liked and the people who were running the server were being basically cornered by an artist who was basically saying, you either are with us or against us, make a choice. And that will determine whether or not I let you use my art. You can hate it, you can love it, but it's here to stay. And all the lawsuits in the world are not going to stop it. It's like lawsuits for Walmart saying, we've got the technology for you to scan yourself and get out there and have a little camera and stuff and watch you and treat you like a criminal and stop all these jobs. The Luddites, which is really a very negative word, were the people who wanted to keep everything the way that it was way back when. We don't want our fields. Play Vaesen. It's a great Luddite game. We don't want technology to take over. We don't want to have the technology eliminate our raison d'être, our reason for being. But it is, and it will. And we have to find different ways of finding income. We have to find different ways of being part of society. And if we keep on supporting these companies that keep on doing the micropayments, like Sony and Microsoft, like PlayStation and Xbox, and we keep on supporting the Nintendo stuff. I mean, I used to walk around like a mad person with the Pokemon Go, was it? Is that what it is? Anyway, the going around with my phone and stuff. My wife and I would go around chasing down Pokemon, flick, 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 flick. Oh my gosh, what was I doing? All of us have to wake up of our slumber because technology is here to stay. So if you're going to make a stance against something, then at least be consistent with every other aspect. If you're going to get rid of your D&D Beyond subscription, then make sure that every other aspect of your life reflects your values, because ultimately this is about our values. Before I used morality, but really it's our values. What is your core value? If you believe that everything should be open source, then stop, well, you can buy the Mac, but, put on Ubuntu. Don't buy Microsoft Office and Teams. Oh, but my boss forces me. Well, that's the catch, isn't it? My players want to play D&D because we want to be like Critical Role. Get back on this. And then we're forced to get back on the 5e 1D&D. Oh, the 1D&D has come out, and have you seen how wonderful it looks? You need miniatures. Reluctant Artsy, buy those miniatures that you can make 3D with all the corrections that you can do. And I want a color one. And it's only going to cost you $20 for a miniature. We've got to think. We're losing our minds. I'm ranting because I care and because I've been there, as you've seen. I've given you clear examples of how I've been sucked in. And maybe in a lot of ways I continue to be sucked in. If I want to support, and I am doing Patreon, but I'm really using my brain, I would rather send money to the group that I support on Twitch or on YouTube than supporting the platform. Where's the open source platforms? Can we just not have them because we don't have the availability with the bandwidth or with the server capacity? Is that why we constantly have to pay? I'd rather pay for that than pay for it than go through all these micro things. But as you see, you've probably been questioning me all throughout this video because you realize that the implications are much more complicated than what's being said, where WotC is evil and Hasbro is evil. Hasbro wants to make a buck. Why are you surprised? Matt Colville wants to make a buck. He loves the game, don't get me wrong. If there's anybody who loves the game out there, he loves the game. And he's going to tell you the truth. And you're not necessarily going to like everything he says because he's going to be brutally honest. And he's brutally honest because he's old and he doesn't give a fuck anymore, like me. I am by no means as wise as him. Though we did sing in choirs. I was part of a professional choir back in the day in my 17, 18s, and 19s, and pretty much most of my early life. And so, yeah, we share that. But he loves this game. I love this game too. But I'm a consumer, and he's a creator. And that's the difference. Maybe you're a creator. Create. By all means, make money. You should. Artists should make money. And I support artists, even though I said that I love AI art. And I think that Midjourney is awesome because it's here to stay. And I want to embrace it. But I want to embrace it in a way where I can manipulate the figures, the manipulation aspect, without directly affecting art. But don't be fooled. Art changes. Art's been stolen all throughout the centuries. And I mean, there hasn't been one friggin' period of time that art hasn't been stolen from someone else. So don't get all high and mighty on your class action lawsuits because you think that this is just direct stealing. You know what? The only difference is that this is a bunch of ones and zeros. And once you put your art out there, you're out there. Just like when I put a video out there, I'm out there. And I'm either going to be shamed, I'm going to be hated, I'm going to be loved. But once it's out there, it's out there. Yeah, artists need to continue to be supported. I think over that shoulder, you will see that I have bought art. I have a lot of art in my house that I have actually purchased, some of which I've commissioned and paid a lot more than my games on. Because I like to support the local artists where I am living. And I've been able to move 4 or 5, 6 times actually. And so I have art from all over this region of the world. So I support artists. And for my channel, when I can afford it, which I never will be able to do, I will pay for an artist to do things. But we don't have that means. And so you're saying that you want to have an open gaming license so that you can have freedoms, but then you want to close down innovation in AI programs because you don't want things being stolen. The world is a complicated place. And I want you to think about this and all the implications. Have you, just like me, contributed to this mindset that Cindy Williams has that we are under-monetized? Is it because we've shown them that we can spend the money in that way so that they can justify monetizing it? Yeah, we have. We absolutely have. And we've got to stop it. We are overspending in our hobbies to such an extent that they believe they can do anything. And if you believe that it's going to stop with WotC, you're fooling yourself, because Paizo would love to be the king of the mountain or the queen of the mountain, the ruler of the mountain. And so would everybody. Who doesn't want to succeed and be greater than? Let's be realistic about what our goals are in saying to WotC, we've had enough, I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. Have a great day.